And I'm Siobhan.
And bitches, we're back. It's she, they, just like me.
For real.
Whoa, did you miss us? We missed you.
I missed you guys so much. Oh my god. I'm so happy to be recording the pod again. In fact, one of my New Year's resolutions is to do a lot more podcasting this year. So apologies for the hiatus, but I also have a sense that Moth and I are going to be cranking out episodes much more frequently in the coming months. So just hang in there.
I'm looking out my window right now. I'm seeing the she, they symbol shining in the sky because it looks like the folks need us now more than ever.
Oh my god. Just when I thought it was out. They pulled me back in. Just kidding. I'll never be out. But yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I am out in the sense, like, out of the closet. I don't know. Is that a stupid joke? That's a stupid joke.
Hey, no, we're off to a real good start. Don't you worry.
Yeah. You can tell I'm like I'm dusting off, you know, the rust, the podcasting rust, right?
Hey,
I'm
can't tell it at all.
Stretching my podcasting muscles.
Oh yeah,
okay.
You're doing a big old bunny stretch. I hear it.
Oh, of course, yeah. You know where they do that, like, they, like, sit on their back paws, or their front paws, and they, like, push their shoulders, and then they do, like, a really big, like, yeah! Like, that's what I'm doing right now, 100%.
Your teeth are twitching, your ears are flicking a little bit. I know. I see it.
Exactly.
Shit, what the fuck have you been up to?
I've been working a lot, actually. I got back from a project last week. This week I was doing a bunch of report writing and things like that. Really boring, like, Excel document shit.
Ooh.
But it's all very important to archaeology. You know, it's not all going out there and digging holes, actually. A lot, like,
it's not all glitz and glamour.
A lot of it. Exactly. A lot of it is note-taking, too, and recording things, and then writing reports and things like that. And, like, 80% of it is just the most, like, cell-gored up, like, Excel documents you've ever seen in your whole life. Like, oh my god. And, like, to the point where, like, you know, I was trying to, like, find the information on, like, one person's hole that they dug last year at this site, and I had to look through like 4 documents, Excel documents, and scroll through them because the find and replace wasn't working, and I still couldn't find it. So that's how I've been this week. Just going absolutely cross-eyed, looking at notes and doing really, really boring inside things, which has been great for my soul, by the way. I don't know if you know that about office work. It's really good for the spirit, famously so, actually.
It's rejuvenating, I've heard.
Oh God, yes. How have you been, Moth?
Been trying to focus on what's really important in my life, and that is the connections with friends online and locally. We went to a Babe Haven Girl Brutal concert, met up with a bunch of friends that hadn't seen in a while. That really meant a lot to me. I'm not trying to name any names because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but they're all extremely important to me. That was a really good healing night for me.
That's wonderful.
Let me think outside that. I've been playing a lot of Infinity Nikki. We haven't really talked about that. I've been playing a Hard-Coded. We haven't even talked about that game on the show at all. Oh, yeah.
Hard-Coded is really good. It is a very horny porn game, but
yes.
Everyone is trans in it. It's so funny. I don't know. It's a fun little thing. I like it.
You play as a droid, and that is kind of the metaphor they use for the game of, like, even though just about all the characters, except for like 2 or 3, are trans, you still have an outsider perspective not being human. So yeah. You're doubly different because, like, you can't even fit in with these trans women entirely because their life experiences, you're still trying to catch up on those. So there's like a whole sub-story of them including you in a D&D campaign that's really cute. And there's just beautiful little moments in the game that really do, like, reflect on what it means to be different and what it means to be accepted by a group of friends. And like, honestly, like we've talked about it on the show, maybe. I know we've talked about it one-on-one. That's still very new for me. Like growing up, not having many friends at all, now finding myself at the center of a fucking like bringing people together and people actually wanting to hang out with me and wanting to get to know me. It's new. And it's very, I don't know. Like, I always worry I'm doing it wrong. Because, like, I don't want to overstay my welcome. I don't want people to get tired of me, that rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria, raging as hard as it ever has. But I'm trying, you know? So that's really been my life for the past couple months.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I've been playing Pokemon.
Oh, that's true! That's true!
Yeah.
How's that
really
going?
Comment on there. It's just really fun to have all my little animal friends and to train them and make them strong, you know?
We all love that.
And then it's just like me and my husband sitting on the couch and like we're watching something. We've been rewatching Bridgerton recently and like I'm just like playing, and I'm like playing Pokemon. It's so fun. I love it.
That's very cute. I love everything about that.
Not exactly a transcentric pornography game, but you know, it is very fun and very wholesome.
We both saw the TV Glow at different times in our lives, did. But it was there, and we're going to talk about it. I've been chomping at the bit because I remember you tweeted about this months and months ago at this point. That I'm very curious about what your just overall takeaway from the film is.
So, I mean, I think my tweet when I first saw it, and that kind of encapsulates how I feel about it, is I agree with everyone about I saw the TV Glow. And what I mean by that is, like, it is a great movie. It is, like, it talks a lot about the trans experience. It's very moving for someone who, like, experienced a lot of the things that are depicted in the film and had a very, like, visceral, like, emotional reaction to it. It had me crying, like, very much throughout the film. But also, like, you know, I heard a lot of people criticize it because, you know, the message is, like, kind of, like, very particular and pointed, and you kind of have to know that it's about being transgender. Like, it doesn't really, like, say that ever. And, like, some people who didn't know that and watched it were confused. Like, they thought it was more about, like, nostalgia and stuff like that. And I think that is sort of a weakness in the film. I think it's a good film. I also understand, and this is going to be a controversial take, I understand why it was not nominated for an Oscar. You know, I get it. I also think there's, like, other parts of the film that they're kind of stretched out, which is sort of like an artistic, like, choice. Like, I think it's there for, like, a thematic reason, but it kind of goes really long, and there's just a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of, like, weird, like, surreal imagery that, you know, is certainly interesting, but, like, I don't know, there's, like, it's a very complex piece of art that is just, I don't know, it, like, to me, it does not fully coalesce into what I would consider to be, like, a great movie. I think it's fairly mid, actually. It's probably, like, a movie that I liked the least for the amount that it made me cry, right? Like, oh, okay. I was sobbing, but, like, other movies that have made me cry, I'm like, wow, this is a great movie. But I did not walk away from this one feeling the exact same.
Is it too oversimplified to say I disagree with everything you just said? No, it's fine.
No, yeah, go for it.
Can you elaborate on that? No. Remember how we were talking about Transgender Dysphoria Blues and how that was an album that I was kind of afraid of for a while and didn't know how it would affect me, so I kind of shied away from it. I saw the TV Glow, and I think I even said this when we almost started talking about the movie, but then we were like, no, actually, let's save it for a future episode, and that was like 6 episodes ago, was that this movie is the movie equivalent to that album, I think. Because I remember hearing a lot of people, when there was a lot of hype around the movie, saying that they were afraid to watch it. And I think there's a very specific reason why I haven't watched it before today, since I saw it in the theater. Simply, that's because I don't think I've ever been as emotionally affected by a movie as this one. And I like that feeling, but I need to be in a headspace for it.
Yeah.
So we talked about talking about this album for a while, so I was able to gear myself up for it and hype myself up, and we were going to talk about it earlier in the week, but we pushed it back because this week was so fucking busy. So I had all week to kind of psych myself up to watch it. And I'm so glad we're talking about it today, because I'm very glad that I had an excuse to watch it again. I think this film is beautiful in just about every way, from the visual aspects to how it's written, to how the characters are portrayed, to the fucking music selections. Watching it back and having the ability to pause it and actually take time to reflect on things helped a lot. It was really a barrage when we saw it the first time in the theater. It was kind of a lot to take in, especially at certain points when there's like things to look for in the background I'll get to later. That definitely adds to the experience. I personally don't think this film is for everybody. And when I say that, I mean I don't think it was meant for everybody. So
yeah.
when we say that, you know, this is a very particular film, and we say that a lot of people didn't get it, just about everybody I talked to that was cis, from my coworkers that I may or may not regret telling them to watch the film, to my parents, were all very confused and did not get it. And I don't know if they're meant to. Like, I think this film is very unapologetic when it comes to the audience that feel like they don't necessarily get it. And I think it's very much meant for a very specific audience. And I totally agree that I understand why this wasn't nominated for Oscars either. I think it definitely should have been nominated for at least the editing and maybe the music and some of the visual aspects. If you're not going to recognize the movie itself, maybe the director. It could be a whole nother discussion when we eventually talk about Emily Perez, but to see that film recognized so across the board and this not get anything, it definitely feels intentional. And I don't think that actually has anything to do with the film itself. I think that kind of sends a message that maybe the Academy itself is not ready for a film like I Saw the TV Glow, and just because like we just don't get it to more like a we don't care to get it. And I've only seen the one scene of Emily Perez, so I can't base my entire opinion on the movie or the people who are in it or the AI aspects of it. There's a lot riding against this film. And I'd honestly be very surprised if it's still nominated by the time the awards come around, but we'll see.
I mean, we'll see, yeah. But I mean, I gotta say, like, you know, I really do think that there is this sort of like online trans groupthink sometimes where like some people don't like something, so everyone just doesn't like it automatically. Like, I think that, you know, I've definitely seen that with like other media where like, you know, I'll talk to someone about like, you know, a film or something, and people will be like, oh, I hate that. And it's like, oh, but have you seen it? Have you watched it? And they haven't. You know what I mean? And I get the sense that's going on with like Emilia Perez, where it's like, I want to see the film because I saw that one scene and I thought it was kind of funny, and like people are like joking about the song, but the song is kind of funny. I don't know, like, isn't it a little goofy and silly? Are we allowed to be a little goofy and silly? Like, I don't know. Let me watch the film before I opine on it, though. Like, I you know, maybe it's a horrible. Who knows? But I think your comparison with Transgender Dysphoria Blues is actually excellent. It just kind of goes to show me, especially, that film and music are just very different mediums. Like, music is so personal. Music is a tool. I listen to music when I'm, like, going through things and I'm like wanting to feel some kind of emotional catharsis about it when I'm having bad days and things like that. So like Transgender Dysphoria Blues, I love that record, and it is very similar to this film, but film is like a medium for everyone, or supposedly, right? Not that like all films have to be for all people, but it's much less personal. It's also much more of a thing that you have to like consign yourself to do, right? Like you can't just put on a film in the background necessarily and get all the same things out of it, where you can do that with music. And I think that's sort of part of why I feel the way I do about this film as opposed to that album. A lot of these themes I think are really interesting for music because it's like, oh, I could be having a terrible day and I could listen to this music and I could sing it and I could feel this like catharsis where, you know, there's definitely emotional catharsis in this film. Don't get me wrong, but it's just like I'm a much more passive sort of observer while I like absorb that kind of art, you know? It just doesn't hit for me the same way. And also the fact that like, you know, you want it to be like something where you can show other people and they understand you. But it doesn't seem to have that effect either. You know what I mean?
I think that's okay. To put those responsibilities on a filmmaker is extremely constricting and limiting. And especially when you're trying to be artistic and tell a story that is very specific, to try to make it broader and more accessible in a way kind of cheapens it, I think. And what I like about this film is that it doesn't care. It clearly doesn't care. It knows its audience, and the audience that appreciated it, I think, could put this on as a comfort film or something in that regard, just because maybe it means so much to them, or, you know, they've seen it so many times that it just has kind of become like a background thing of just like, oh yeah, like I know this movie like the back of my hand, you know, that kind of thing.
In your personal experience, though, you did mention that you watched it once initially, and then you have not watched it again until we're talking about it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I did the same thing, right? I was not necessarily excited to jump back into this film. You know what I mean? It's a horror film. It's scary. It's meant to like, it's especially scary for me because like I very well could have been like Owen at the end of this film. You know what I mean? And that's terrifying to me. Do I get a sense of like emotional catharsis from it? I certainly don't. I think it actually just kind of sits in that fear, that feeling. I personally don't get a lot of comfort from that. I get a lot of the feeling of like, wow, I'm sure glad I transitioned, which can be very powerful. And like I said, I did cry. I'm not saying it's a bad piece of art. I like this film quite a bit. It's well made. It has a lot of interesting things to say. Comparing it to like Transgender Dysphoria Blues is so interesting to me because it's like I love that record and I listen to that record all the time, but I'm not exactly like throwing on I Saw the TV Glow after a hard day at work. You know what I mean?
That's your experience with the film. Others may have different experiences with it. I myself was excited to rewatch it, but I was very apprehensive to, not because, oh, this movie's a slog, I don't want to watch it, but because I wasn't sure the mood it was going to put me in. Because when I saw it in the theater initially, I did not cry as much, basically because I was forcing myself not to, and I wish I didn't, because I still kind of have hang-ups around crying in public and being perceived for my emotions and stuff like that. So that's still kind of hard for me. But this was also a while ago when I saw it in theaters. Maybe if I saw it now, it'd be different, because I saw Will and Harper in a theater and I was openly sobbing. But for the end of the film, and if we're just going to jump ahead, because I know we'll talk about specifics, but just talking on the surface here, when you see Owen working in the fun center and the words 20 years later pop up on the screen, my heart sunk to my fucking ball sack of just...
Of course.
From that point on, I think it really did put me through the fucking ringer, to the point where, like, I started crying a little bit at that point, and seeing the "there is still time" on the street, that whole point. But during the scene, when he has his I'm gonna say we can jump around because I don't really know the ending takeaway here. Yeah. How we're supposed to feel about the characters by the end specifically. But when they have their breakdown and they start screaming during the birthday party, from that point till the very end, when we got up to leave, I was shaking, of just frozen, stiff as a board in my seat, like I was fucking electrified, of just like, oh my god. I've never felt that way watching a movie before. And yeah, like we walked out of the theater and we ended up getting photos at one of those little photo booths And the whole walk there, like, Neb was trying to talk to me about the movie, and I was just completely unable to, barely able to speak, because it really did shake me so fucking hard. But I know I have spoke to some people who do appreciate this film in the way that they could just throw it on. I'm not saying that's for me, and you're saying that that's not for you, but I think that everyone's experience with art is going to be different in that way. And just because we didn't find it to be like a super, like, maybe like a feel-good ending, I don't think that takes away from the film, personally. I think, if anything, the unique experience to this film adds to it, especially by the end. Even the second time watching it, I still wasn't sure how to feel about the ending, where you don't really know what Owen is going to do going forward. I remember I was very sad with the ending because it seemed like Owen was just going to keep repressing and keeping the feelings inside, while Neb was like, I thought that was a hopeful ending. I don't know. I think the ending of the film leaves it ambiguous for a reason, so you don't really know. And I like that too. I guess like a lot of it really just comes down to my appreciation for Lynch and the abstract and the absurd.
It's very Lynchian for sure, like just in its whole vibe. Absolutely. It's very surreal, and it's very like horror minded in it, where like you're just kind of uncomfortable the entire time. Like you just like feel gross, like you want to like crawl out of your skin, which is the right feeling, right? Like that is the thing, but it also just kind of made me feel like I was back in the closet. You know what I mean? Like,
that's a really interesting way of putting it. Yeah.
That's what I think is so interesting about this piece of art, is that it's like, it really does capture that feeling very well. And that seems to be the intent of it. And it's well executed on that front. It's just that, like, I'm not excited to watch it. I'm not, excited to put it back on. And also the fact that it seems to not really land in the same way for people who aren't trans women. I also think that that's a little bit of a sort of a demerit for me, which is that, like, if you want to make this film that's trying to capture this feeling, it's gotta really like stick the landing there where it makes other people understand what the experience is. And I don't think it does that. It's like talking to a closed group. It doesn't really hold anyone else's hand through the process. You know what I mean? Which I think is fine, but it's just like, especially with films being like a more public art, a less private one, something that's intended to be experienced by a lot of people in a more like social setting, and less like you put it on your headphones and you listen to it. You know what I mean? I think that makes it a bit challenging, I'm just going to keep going back to, I like that it is so challenging. And I think there's too many movies that do hold your hand through it and kind of like take the time to explain to cis people what this particular thing means and this feeling. But what I love so much about this movie is that you watch it and you see someone experiencing something and you just know. Like, that look, that tone, that feeling. And that's why it resonates so well with me, and I think with other trans women, is there's just a connection. And I think it's meta in the way that the film itself is about having a connection with a character in media, that I think it kind of it really does like go back in on itself. It really does just kind of hold a mirror up. And it's like Owen is seeing this Isabel character in The Pink Opaque and is like, wow, like I see myself in that character. And me in the theater looking at Owen repressing and holding in his feelings and being like, wow, yeah, that was me. I know that feeling. I think that's a very specific thing to independent films, is that it doesn't give a fuck about it being a public thing. And like, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Like, this movie didn't make money. It kind of reminds me of the whole discussion now with Disney and Pixar and how they're wanting to focus less on stories that tell very specific experiences and try to tell more generalized, this is something everybody can appreciate, everybody can get. And I think that's fucked, because like having seen films like Turning Red that told a very specific story about a girl
coming into adulthood, fucking Inside Out, like dealing with your emotions and stuff like that. Movies that really resonated with people that might not have been the big runaway successes like Moana or some shit like that, or like Frozen. But I think the people who liked Turning Red and liked Inside Out, the movies meant more to them because they did have more of a connection to it than just a passing, I like the songs in Moana, I like The Rock, this movie's pretty. I think we're already seeing a broader backlash of this in what we're talking about now, where like the voice actor from the new Spider-Man movie or series was like, I was really worried this was going to be woke and annoying. And like, you're just kind of seeing the studios wanting to take less and less risks on personalized individual stories and going for more broader mass appeal. And I think we're going to lose a lot of beauty in art by doing that. Like, yeah. Sure, you have a lot of old classic movies, like, let's say, Wizard of Oz, that everybody can put on and everybody can watch and, says is great. But, like, at the end of the day, are they going to say that The Wizard of Oz touched them the same way a movie that, like, really did put their experience on screen back at them? And I don't think they would say it would.
Yeah, I think you actually make an excellent point, you always make excellent points, Moth. I realize, whoa, hold on a second. You always make excellent points, but that's a very interesting point to me in particular because, yeah, it didn't make money, right? And again, films being a more like for everyone medium, like an album that's like for a specific small group of people, that can have legs. Like that can make money for a long time. You can tour on it. It can have this like larger cultural splash beyond like what the film is. But like there are not that many trans people, and there are even fewer trans women, right? And this is a very specific film for us, which feels good. And you know what? You're goddamn right. We're probably not going to get another film like this produced by a big studio in a long time because, yeah, Hollywood is, we're adjusting, we're like trying to get the zeitgeist again, which is very much flowing away from us, right? Turning Red is a very like interesting film because it's about coming of age as a cis woman in particular. There's a little bit of a like menstrual cycle theme going on there, right? Beyond that, it's also very much about the experience of being like Asian American immigrant family, right?
Generational trauma.
Intergenerational trauma. There's a lot going on there. And you know what? There's a lot more people that can relate to something like that than there are trans women. You know what I mean? And like, it's, I understand like, it does feel good to like be represented on the screen. And I mean, fuck, like I said, we better appreciate this one because it's probably going to be our last in a while for like this large of a production. Right. But I also think just because of the nature of how few of us there are, I think a lot of the art we make, if it's a film, I think there is a little bit of a duty to like, try to explain it more than to just rely on, you've experienced this, right? Because you can't rely on that in the same way where, a film like Turning Red can, and a film like Turning Red can make a lot more money and be a lot more successful, even though it seems like films like that are also probably going to go to the wayside for a while. So, that's part of my feeling too. Not that art has to be like propaganda or anything like that. Art can be whatever it is. It's just sort of part of why I think I feel the way I do about it, which is that like maybe like to criticize myself, there might be a little bit of a self-critical aspect in this where like I'm embarrassed to see myself on the screen in such a raw way. It's like difficult for that. Do we want to get into like a little bit of a plot recap and then go from there, or like?
We can in a second. I was just going to ask a question because you keep saying like we're a very small group, and we know it's very targeted. Do we not deserve a film like this? Like, I think we deserve that. I
mean, we deserve it, but because of the nature of our situation being like such a small group. that comes with significant downsides that I think we need to grapple with. You know what I mean? Like, is it fair? No, it's not fair. But I think that's just like sort of part of the like fabric of reality that I think we need to kind of grapple with more than we do sometimes.
I wanted to get a better understanding of what you mean by that in particular.
I don't know. I mean, like, I think one of the reasons why our communities are so tight knit is because like so much of the outside world doesn't get it. With that comes a duty, I think, to try to translate it, you know, to try to make it seem a part of a larger human experience, even if people don't initially understand it. And that takes a lot of work. Does every trans woman need to do that with everything that she does? No, of course not. I think that film is a particular medium, especially something that's like with this wide of a release, you know, because it is an independent film, but it's also, you know, it was in theaters. It was like backed by A24. I think there is a little bit of a responsibility to make it like more accessible to people who might not understand. And I think, have you seen the Red Letter Media review of this?
Yes.
One guy is just like, I did not get this at all. And these are people that like review films all the time, and they review tiny films. They review like they have a whole series where they watch like weird like VHSs that they're just sent, right? Like they watch all kinds of films. And this guy just did not understand what the movie was trying to do. And the other one did, and that's good. It's not necessarily a criticism from my own experience, because like obviously it, like I said, it shot me right in the fucking heart. I think it's worth noting. I think it's worth discussing, like, especially because film is a medium for more people.
A movie that's an hour and 40 minutes dealing with a kid's experience with this television show and this very supernatural whole overarching vibe isn't going to have time to delve into those very small specifics of like, he wants to see this show, but his dad or stepdad or whatever says it's for girls, and that's a problem, and here's why it's a problem. I think it would have been like 4 fucking hours if it would have actually taken the time to hyper focus on the things that would have made it easier for people to understand. Because I think the people that the movie was meant for got it. And that's why I think the movie is a success in that way. Because I don't think it was meant for broad appeal. I don't think they made the movie with the thought that this was going to be a smash success. Like the director themselves even said on Twitter, in response to I Saw the TV Glow getting snubbed at the Oscars, yeah, I mean, I sort of get it. I don't think they made the movie thinking this was going to sweep, you know?
Yeah, but, you know, a lot of people were like, you know, how dare the Oscars snub this film, like, you know, in our circle. But it's just one of those things like, okay, like, completely fair. It is a movie about our experience directly, and it does not hold the audience's hand. Great. We then cannot expect it to have a large cultural splash as a result. You know, it's just not going to do that if it does that. That's sort of the cost of it, right? Is that a good thing? Certainly not. Do we deserve better? Of course we do. But like, I think that we just kind of have to, unfortunately, accept that, right? I certainly think the film could have done more to make those points more explicit. That said, there is a lot of poetry in not saying. There is a lot of, you know, like they say, like jazz is more about the notes that you don't hit, right? It's very like that, you know, and that is very beautiful. I don't know. I'm like wrestling with this piece of art. It's tough, right?
It really is a if you know, you know. Like if you care enough to know that the director is trans and that the movie is a trans allegory, that they straight up said, like, it wasn't a big mystery. We weren't debating it. It wasn't like who has the thing at the end of the thing. It's like the director straight up told you, like, this is a trans experience. So if you know that going in, a lot of the things that happen in the movie are kind of like no-brainer moments. And I guess we can go through that because I have a lot of notes on those. Maybe it's more obvious to me because I am a trans woman and I have gone through a lot of this. I actually thought that was going to be your complaint. Was that it was kind of beating you over the head with it and not that it didn't explain it enough. I'm going to try to go through these bulletin points relatively quickly or else we're going to be here all night. But he's flipping through the channels and he lands on a commercial for the Pink Opaque. And this is his first introduction. And there's a line of dialogue you hear that says, "They can't hurt you if you don't think about them." And that really does set the stage for the whole movie of, if you don't think about the trans thoughts, then they're not going to get you. Like, It really does kind of prime you for repression is going to work, actually. You can trick yourself into not being trans if you don't look at it. Like, don't open that door and you'll be fine. The very next visual you see is Owen in the trans parachute, which I saw a lot of people being like, okay, we fucking get it. Like, trans colors right out the fucking gate.
And also in this, like, it's like a closed space too. It's like, they create this like balloon where all the children are, and then Owen is like walking around inside of it. It's very like, this is like the sort of personal inner world, right?
Then it cuts to Owen, who is seemingly, we do find out later in the film that he is an adult, and although he is now, as we learn later, living in his parents' old house, he spends a lot of time just alone in the woods staring at a bonfire, which is like, okay, things aren't great. Maddie is talking about how the school being transformed into something else on election day makes it special. The plot of Pink Opaque, the meeting an imaginary friend at a summer camp, or a sleepaway camp, as they always say throughout the film.
Yes.
That you have a psychic connection with that lives on the opposite side of the county, but you're connected through this logo on the back of your neck that like you have this psychic connection with.
Yeah, that's very clearly like a trans thing, right? Like, I mean, like trans women, trans people generally have always connected to each other over great distances, right? Because there's so few of us,
Case in point.
Yeah.
One scene in particular that I was not able to really appreciate in the theater because it went by so fast was there's a scene where Owen is walking down a hallway, and up on the screen are these notes that Maddie left for Owen on the cassette tapes about each individual episodes about the Pink Opaque, like plot synopsis. One was like, this episode's gonna make you cry, this is the season finale, and stuff like that. But if you're taking the time to read those, you miss the bulletin boards in the background that say, Carpe Diem, to thine own self be true, and I took the road less traveled, the only easy day was yesterday.
Yeah.
And in between, there's like a whole lot of general messages of strength and courage, like one saying pain is weakness leaving the body, and one is just like, it's all like very rah-rah high school pep rally kind of bullshit. But those in particular kind of felt like the voices in the back of your head that you don't really take the time to listen to, but they've always been there, kind of. Again, I don't want to go beat for beat, but they, like, a couple of the notes specifically say, like, we have to stop this Mr. Melancholy character who is the one who is, like, making all the kids' lives miserable, and says, we are the Pink Opaque. So already Maddie has this, like, we have a connection to this show that I feel that I need you to understand.
Yeah. And it's like, and she says too, like right in the beginning, like, oh, like the mythology is so deep, like, like it's not for every kid, like they're not going to understand it. And that's sort of like, I think that's sort of Jane Schoenbrunn, like sort of saying that about the film too. Like the mythology is deep. It's not for everyone. It's not like, not everyone is going to get it. And I definitely agree. And like also like what they say about like Mr. Melancholy, like, oh, everyone works for Mr. Melancholy. You know what I mean? Like the whole world is going to tell you that you can't be trans, that you can't do this. And, the whole idea of like being buried alive, and it's like, and you're not even gonna know that you're dying, but like things inside you are just gonna like slowly die. Like those are all very clear messages, like for me, absolutely, about like the what it's like to be in the closet or to, not fully understand what's wrong with you. And I also relate to the character of, like, Owen quite a bit. At one point, Maddie asks him, like, about, like, his sexuality, and he's like, when I think about it, it's like someone scooped out all of my insides. It's very relatable to me, yeah.
I know something's wrong with me. My parents know it too, even though they don't say anything. Like, yeah.
And the same, and like the way like Owen like avoids his father and like way prefers his mother, that is like very like one-to-one my childhood. You know what I mean? Like having a very strict upbringing and like, you know, wanting to express yourself outside of that, but never feeling able to really be alive, right? Very, very deeply relatable to me.
I think a real big part of this too is the fucking fear, the dread that Owen has almost right away. Maddie says that I got to get out of this town. We'll die here if we stay here. And Owen says, if you leave, I won't have anyone to watch the pink opaque with. And Maddie draws the pink opaque symbol on the back of their neck, which I still want to get tattooed one day.
That would be a really cool tattoo, yeah. I do like that idea. It's very pretty.
I've seen so many people get them, and I want one so bad. But I also want moths, so who knows? We'll see. I think it'd be weird if I got a pink opaque tattoo before a moth tattoo. Like, I don't know. Priorities. I gotta put them in order here. It's when Owen is laying down with Maddie, and they see the static manifest. Like, Owen can actually see it now. Owen, like, runs to the mom of the kid Owen was lying that he was having the sleepovers with, and he's like, you gotta tell my dad I lied. I need to be grounded. I can't let her take me. And, like, that very real fear of the, like, you're starting to see it. Like that, seeing the static was like that first little egg crack, and just the no, that I can't do that. That's fucking terrifying, actually.
The going back, yeah, especially very, very, very pointed, I think.
A part that I related to a lot was Owen's relationship with his coworkers, and how his like male coworkers are like shitty towards him, and like they're like sexually active, and they're bullying him for like being quiet and not looking at them. That was a very weird scene. It was very specific, and I felt like as someone who's also autistic, like yeah, like you really don't have that connection with your male coworkers, and that's usually, for me, that was a pretty big sign. Hanging around with my male coworkers and the awful misogynistic jokes and homophobia, and drinking just having that one drinking with the jocks.
Yeah.
Having that one female coworker years and years ago who now is one of my like biggest supporters. Like a serious ride or die. I fucking love her to death. I remember her saying one time, she was just like, you're not like the other guys here. And I still remember everything about that moment, like where we were standing, how she said it, why she said it. And that was one of those moments of like, that's a canon event.
Yeah.
Like someone, and like having it be a point of pride too, of like, yeah, you're right. I'm not. Fuck these guys. I'm not the same as them. I'm very proud of that. And I don't know how different I actually am, but I'm gonna realize it in like 5 years, which is way longer than I would have liked it to take. Kind of going back to another thing I have written down a couple times here. I wish, and I saw a lot of people saying this, I wish I had a fucking Maddie growing up. Someone to just be like, I see it. I can sense it. And like I've said this before, if I was in high school and I sat down and I was just talking my fucking egg shit, like the more and more I think back on it, I was dropping hints so often. If someone was just like, do you think you're trans? Do you think you're a woman? That would have made, I would have been like, yeah, probably. Like, that would have made the world, like, a world of difference. Someone to just take the time to be like, I see it in you. But that took fucking forever. Like, Neb, in hindsight, said that there were signs that they had seen, but it's not an easy thing to bring up to somebody.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times we did just kind of, like, didn't really mention it outright. They'd make small suggestions, but nothing that blunt, as to not maybe scare me away from it, which it might have. We don't know. There's one other part in particular that I related to a good bit, which also could be autism. When Maddie asks, do you ever feel like you're narrating your own life watching a play out in front of you like an episode of television? Yes, all the time. Or do you have a hard time distinguishing between what happened in the show and what happened in real life? I have a series of false memories that I swear to God happened. Like, I remember telling my friend Dylan, I was like, you remember that time you had me try your cigarette? And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, we were on the balcony and you were smoking a cigarette and you handed it to me and you were like, you want to take a hit off of it? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And he was like, you would never do that in your life. He was like, you did not do that. And I have a photographic memory of it happening. Yeah. And that's not an isolated incident. There's a few of them like that. And they're just like, no, that absolutely never happened. And it's like, then why do I remember it so vividly? So that might be a whole different topic for another day. But that's something that's bouncing around up there.
That's very interesting, yeah. That whole segment where Maddie was talking about all those things, that was very, like, I related to that as, like, my egg self. Like, the same with, like, she was talking about, like, the passage of time happening really, like, fast. And it was like, yes. She didn't feel, like, alive. She was like, this isn't how it should be going. Like, that was so relatable to me. Like, in a lot of cases, I felt like I was, for, like, large periods of my life, like, more or less asleep, where I was like, oh my God, it's already the new year again. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. Like, I didn't feel alive. And it's like, what was the line? I paid a guy I worked with $20 to bury me alive, and he didn't even know that that's what I was paying him for, and he wouldn't have even cared if he did. Like, that was a very powerful line to me, and, like, it was very relatable to me, like, with, like, what it felt like to be in the closet and an egg, right? Very, like, emotionally powerful, very, very moving, for sure.
There's the one line where Maddie says, when she's talking about how time slipped away, she says it's like chapters skipped on a DVD.
Yes.
Like, the way they wrote for these two characters is, like, some of the most realistic writing I think I've ever heard from people. Like, how they were able to capture the awkward child Owen was, and just how, like, skittish he constantly is, and Maddie just kind of, like, reminding me of every weeb girl I went to school with in high school.
Yeah.
Who was, like, very excited about the anime that she was watching and wanted to tell you all about it. That was watching Maddie with the episode guide in the opening scenes. Just like, oh yeah, I the show isn't for kids, and this is what this means, and this is what this means.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the girl who used to wear a wolf tail to school and would meow in class sometimes. There was one day she was out sick, and this really snooty girl made a comment about her, and I was just like, you wouldn't say that shit if she was here. And she just looked like, oh fuck, you never say anything, and you just really called me out on my shit. Wow.
Oh my goodness. Oops. Yeah.
I really hung out with the people that didn't really fit in anywhere else. It was just like the real weird ragtag group of misfits, including the furry couple, who I don't think are together anymore. And I think one of them's a cop now.
Oh God, furry to cop? Awful transformation.
Furry to cop pipeline? No! The Judy Hopps!
Oh my God, no.
I know.
Judy
Why
Hopps,
does it have to be a bunny?
stain on bunny girls everywhere.
We do not claim her.
Yeah.
I don't even know if there's anything. I'm sorry. I was because I don't know if there's anything specific to say about it. But the scene where Owen sticks his head in the TV.
Oh my God! And then like his dad has to like help him like vomit out all this shit.
That is so fucked. He's watching the last episode of Pink Opaque that Maddie tells him to watch. Like, I gave you the tape of the finale. You got to watch it. And in the episode, Tara, the character that Maddie strongly relates to and is like admires her for her strength and everything, she's buried by Mr. Melancholy. Then he abducts Isabel, feeds her the poison, then shows her what her life would be like in the Midnight Realm. And it shows flashbacks to Owen's childhood. Yeah. Which is so fucking trippy.
Yeah.
And like in the movie, it starts with like a clay model that then like becomes real footage. That I thought was a really good little edit there from like the inside
cool.
the snow globe.
Yeah, I loved that.
That was really cool.
Very, very cool visual. Yeah, and then after that, like Maddie takes Owen to like this football field to like they're gonna bury each other alive, right? Mm-hmm. That was so interesting to me because it's like, you know, I mean, we often talk about like the past life being like a dead person. You know, I often joke with my coworkers, like, you know, sometimes they're like, oh no, don't kill Joey or whatever, like, because we're driving or whatever. And I was like, yeah, you know, I might, because I've already killed one man and I have a taste for it, right?
Got a taste for blood.
Yeah, just joking about, you know, like having killed the boy self, right? And that seems to be the thing, right? And Maddie's like, yeah, like, we'll like let me bury you alive, right? And that being a symbol of like, you know, the sort of rebirth of transition, right? But he again rejects the call. Yeah.
Oh God, I hate when that fucking happens.
Yeah, but isn't
so
that
close.
repression though? Like that's what it is. It's just a series of like almost doing it and then not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where Maddie specifically says, I know it's scary. That's part of it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this is not going to be easy. Like, no one said it was. You know, it's like, this shit's going to suck. When they're on the football field, I'm so glad again for having watched this with headphones, or else I probably wouldn't have heard it the first time. When Owen mumbles, he goes, it's just like the Drain Lords. It's not real if you don't think about it. And that's right before he headbutts Maddie and runs away.
Yep. It's not real if you don't think about it. Ugh.
It's not real if you don't think about it. Motherfuck. It's such a gut punch. And just the face that Maddie has when Owen runs away of just the... you blew it. Yeah. You could have had this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on without you and leave you here, and it's your fault. Like, I tried so many times, and you rejected it every time. That's it. I gotta go. I have to leave you here. I came all the way back from living inside the show to save your ass, and you still reject it?
Yeah.
Fuck it. I'm gone. I tried. I'm gone. And that's when we get the scene where Owen is moving into the house, and he says, I decided to stay in the house. This is after his dad passes away. And you see him throwing out their old tube TV to install the new LG product placement TV, which is probably a big chunk of how this movie got funded. I love that front and center LG logo.
Yeah.
He says, I decided to stay in the house. It was time for me to become a man, a real adult, a productive member of society. And that's exactly what I did. I even got a family of my own. I love them more than anything. Yeah. And right after that, it cuts back to him in the woods again, extinguishing the bonfire, which is the flame he'd been staring into.
Yeah. If you will, his divine light, right?
The divine light.
He's like putting it out, you know, and he's like resigning himself to this life of darkness. You know what I mean? It's very sad. It's very like, this is, you know, pretty much from the time where, I mean, I was crying like basically the second Maddie shows up again. The whole scene in that like lesbian bar, like where they're talking about stuff, I was crying. I stopped crying and then I started crying again. And then like this whole section was just, I was like wide, especially my first time watching it, wide-eyed, tears streaming down my face, going fucking crazy. And yeah. I have a family of my own and I love them more than anything. Gut punch.
And you never see them.
You never see them, yeah. Yeah.
It's like he could very well just be lying. Like, when did he ever meet someone? When did he have time to have a child? Like, that's bullshit, Owen. You're fucking lying to me, and I don't appreciate it.
Yeah. Or it's just they're not very important to him because it's not what he wanted. He didn't want to have a family. He wanted to be a woman, you know?
Yeah, he wanted to be Isabel since a very, very young age.
Yeah.
But he says, what if she had been telling the truth? What if I really was someone else? Someone beautiful and powerful. Someone buried alive and suffocating to death, very far away, on the other side of the television screen. But I know that's not true. That's just fantasy. Kid stuff. Like...
Yeah.
And it really does go back to the conservatives being like, you know, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a blah, 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 but I knew that was just fantasy. And it's just like... to hear the character echoing back those sentiments of conservative commentators is so just like, oh, fuck you, you're so goddamn close.
Yeah.
Like, don't you start that shit now, you bitch. And yeah, from there, we basically talked about it already, but like, he's now working at the fun center. He's way older. He's barely able to do anything without wheezing. There's been this whole thing of being buried alive, suffocation, him having asthma, all throughout the movie, that now it says 20 years later, he's unpacking a box of balls for the ball pit, and he can barely do it without wheezing. And you see that they have a game called Race for Your Life, Mr. Melancholy's Midnight Dash, and there's another one that's like a booth with flying money, and the header just says, "You are dying." That, like... It's becoming more like reality, and the pink opaque, the lines are getting blurred.
Yeah.
It's like American Psycho when, like, you don't know what's real and what isn't. Like the fucking ATM saying, "Feed me a stray cat." It's like, okay, am I seeing that, or is he seeing that? And no, it's not saying that, right? Like,
yeah.
The arcade game would not say, "You are dying," but it is to him. Like, he sees that.
Yeah, he is dying, you know? It's very clear.
And when he just break down screaming, "I need you to help me, I'm dying right now," in the party, when everybody else in the room just freezes like unplugged robots, it's really creepy.
It's so creepy, but that's the thing. It's like he's in pain and no one can understand him because his experience is so particular. No one gets it. And like, I saw a lot of people talking about that scene, and like, you know, they were kind of saying like, oh, like, a lot of my friends are like, I don't get this movie. Like, what was even happening in that last scene? Like, what? But like, for them, it was like so emotionally affecting. And that's the thing. It was emotionally affecting for me too. But it's just like, you really got to have that fear. You got to have those experiences to really get it. I fear. You know what I mean?
Like, films explore every kind of like phobia and anything. But there hasn't been a film that so accurately attacks this very specific fear. And that's why I appreciate it so much. And that if you're going to focus on the fear aspect of it, and especially if you're going to spend a lot of time on the pink opaque mythology and all of that, that there are going to be some things that get left behind, and it's not going to make sense to everybody. I'm not saying your opinion is wrong. Please don't think I'm like shitting on your opinion in any sort of way.
It's okay.
But like, I hear you talking about how emotionally affected you are, and I'm just like, then how can you say the movie was mid? I just don't know if you got it and you appreciated it for what it was and you saw it for what it was. I don't understand how at the end of the day you can still say meh.
I don't know. I think part of it might be a little bit of maybe like unprocessed stuff for me, where it's like I want the things that I experience to be more universal, but they're not. I'm a rare kind of person. They're very particular to me. And this really showed me that, because like, you're totally right that like, it might feel like the film is sort of beating you over the head with what it means, like what the pink opaque represents. You know what I mean? I mean, fuck, the last scene where he cuts his chest open with a box cutter. and then he sees this TV inside of him that's playing the pink opaque, and he like smiles because he's like, oh, it's still in me. You know what I mean? Like this, like
yeah, it's still there.
It's still there,
yeah.
And it's like that's so haunting to me. But like undeniably, a lot of people watched it and they were like, what the fuck is even happening with this? What does any of this mean? And like maybe that hurts more than a lot than I'm willing to admit, the fact that like cis people tend to not get it, you know. Like we see it, we see all the things, and like we relate to it, and we're like, oh my god, my childhood was like that. I had those feelings for so long. I definitely understand what it feels like for time to just get away from you while you like fall asleep, basically, because you just like hate being the person that you are, and like you have this like vision of yourself that you wish you could be, like the pink opaque, right? You don't do it. You don't do it, and it's scary. Like, I mean, it's so terrifying, and like I'm crying like more than most other films have ever made me cry. And then the only thing it leaves me with is a feeling that, you know, beyond the experience of other trans women, when I share this with them, no one else will get this. No one else will really understand. You know what I mean? And I think that's part of it, right? So I don't know. You know, it's very emotionally moving for me, obviously, but I just can't get away from the feeling that the fact that, you know, it's now going to be this like forgotten gem of 2024 forever, because nobody saw it, and there's like, you know, the cultural splash was not really there, except for within our community, like huge cultural splash. But again, we're like,
oh, giant,
we're like less than half of 1% of the population. That's no one. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's like an in-joke that I think is really funny, but I would be embarrassed to explain to my cis friends. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like to me.
I think in a long line of movies that very explicitly explained the trans experience, I don't think they specifically really even resonated with trans people, usually because the movies either weren't made by trans people or didn't star trans people. Like, I know there was the movie in the 90s called, I think it was called Trans America.
Yeah.
About this, like, and like nobody remembers that because it wasn't written with love. It wasn't acted with love. Like, they gave the acceptance speech because, of course, that won an Academy Award because that was daring. Having a cis woman play a trans woman is daring, and that's breaking a glass ceiling. But
and like even another film that we've talked about, like on this podcast, like Hedwig and the Angry Inch, right? Like, one of my criticisms of that film was that it used the trans experience to explore like other ideas, and fundamentally like kind of rejects the trans experience, because it's like, oh well, like this character wasn't really trans, like he was just confused, he was just, you know, brought into it from other people, and I hated that, right? And this is like a movie that is about this particular trans experience, especially one that has a lot to do with repression. You know, not everyone represses in the same way, but like, and some trans women never really have a period of repression, so they don't really get this either. This is really for like the girls like us that, like, you know, we repressed for a long time and we really know what that's like, right?
To make the audience even smaller.
Right, yeah, it's like not even really all trans women, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, it's like, maybe I should just accept the candy that I was given, like, so that another girl made me, you know what I mean? But it's like, I don't know, it's just so particular to me, and it, like, maybe I'm just not used to that. Maybe I've never seen a film that was like this much of me on the screen, and for it to also be this sad and not really that hopeful, you know? It's really just like, oh, well, good thing you transitioned, right? Like, yes. You know, it just leaves me with this feeling like I just feel thankful that I did it, that I didn't keep repressing. You know, I'm so thankful for that. But like, that's kind of, I touched on that a little earlier too. Like, I don't feel a lot of emotional catharsis from this, you know? It just fills me with dread where, you know, I gotta say, like, it's better than feeling like, damn, I like all those times that I repressed, that time, you know, my friend led me to the football field and was like, let's bury you alive, you know, like, and I instead headbutted her and ran away. You know what I mean? Oh, I should have let her do it, you know, like, that's mostly what I feel is like in my day-to-day life is like, damn, I really wish I would have started when I first had these like really clear, definitely you're trans thoughts, like in my early 20s. That would have been way better for me if I did that. That's mostly what I feel. And what this movie makes me feel is like, well, fuck, at least I did it, you know? But
yeah, I get that.
There's no joy in it. There's no hope in it. And not that a film has to do those things, but it's just like, I don't know, it's tough when it's like, I know I'm being really hard on this film, and Jane, if you're listening, I really do love this film. I'm sorry, I just have a lot of complicated feelings about this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
And I don't think you're alone in this either. I'm sure other people had the same feelings and takeaways, and I'm very looking forward to seeing what comments we get on this.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you're gonna get like bombarded with hate comments on this, like you joked about at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't think so. And like, I think I think a lot of your criticisms do make sense. Just because I don't agree with all of them doesn't mean that I don't see your perspective.
Yeah.
And I'm sure other people did feel the same way. I don't know if we're talking about cultural splash. I mean, even talking about Hedwig before, very small film, you know, didn't have much of a, like it made more money on DVDs than it did in the theaters and became a cult classic. I can easily see I Saw the TV Glow becoming a cult classic in its own right. I think it already is. I think for our community specifically, it's probably heralded as one of the more important films.
Yeah.
And I think it might be appreciated more over time than it is now. But I'm glad we got it. And I specifically want to watch Jane's other films. Like there was a film called We're All Going to the World's Fair that's like a found footage horror movie that I really want to see.
I would like to see that too. Yes.
Just because the style of this movie was so gripping, and the scenes like Owen sticking his head in the TV and vomiting up television static, the way it was edited so abruptly as it cut from that scene to the point where it almost felt like that could have been the movie right there. Like, well, that's the end of it. Like, so when it came back, it still had like a half hour left. It was like, oh shit, okay. Like that felt like it could have been the end. Like, I think is beautifully edited. And I think like, that, I think, is ultimately what the community is mostly upset about. Like, I think a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people expected this movie to have broad-reaching appeal and was going to, like, sweep the Oscars or anything. But just the fact that it went completely unrecognized feels like a slap in the face, especially when the other one was. That it definitely just feels like we're getting the token awards for that other film. That...
Yeah.
I mean, I've only seen that one scene. I can guarantee you this, though. I'm not going to like it as much as this movie. Like, even if it's not absolute dog shit, which I'm not putting past the possibility of, I'm not going to like it more than this. I could already tell you that.
I have a feeling that I'm probably going to feel pretty similarly to Amelia Perez as I do about Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Maybe less so, because like at least Hedwig and the Angry Inch has some banger songs, and like it's a fun film.
True.
But I don't know, like it does seem fun from the outside. We'll see.
Yeah, time will tell on that one too.
Yeah, absolutely. Regardless, though, I'm really glad we talked about it, and you know, it was good to hear your opinions on it and to have you challenge me a little bit too, because like I think my feelings are complex, and they're not all only about the film. I think a lot of it is also
Right.
about me and my experience with it, and my experience with myself in this part of my life too. Here's to the rest of 2025 and doing a lot more recording this year. Let's do it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad we got around to this one. And we have no shortage of other topics. But one more thing I did want to mention before we get out of here is we don't have any concrete plans yet. But we are talking about a possible Patreon for the show.
Yes.
And we've had a couple ideas, a few we still want to flesh out, but one I think we've agreed on that could be fun.
Oh my god, yes.
Is, because I've never seen an episode of this in my entire life, is a second, shorter sub-series that's a Patreon exclusive where we discuss episodes of Sex and the City.
Oh my god, yes, we should. I would love that.
In between recording sessions, we'll watch 1 to 2, because they're hour-long episodes, right?
No, a lot of them are just like 20 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're
I thought
pretty
they were like a
bite-sized.
Sopranos thing.
No. I mean, it was like an HBO show, but they're all like half-hour episodes.
I think that's why I thought, everything on HBO is going to be an hour.
Yeah.
But okay, then that's more digestible. Then yeah, maybe a few more then. Who fucking knows?
Absolutely, I'd love that.
But yeah, almost like a book club, but for Sex and the City.
Yes.
And we discuss those and which character we think we are and how terribly the show ages.
Of course. I'm so excited for that. I think that would be really fun. So we'll be putting a lot of that stuff together. Probably talking about it online. So yeah, you can like hit us up on all of our socials and everything like that.
Yes,
we look
Twitter and your server, I imagine.
Yes, and I absolutely look forward to hearing everyone else's opinion on this too, because I know that I have a little bit of a minority opinion on this. Feel free to roast me, just don't hate me. Like, I mean, you can hate me, it's fine, but hating me over like my opinion of I saw the TV glow is silly. There are much better reasons to hate me for, girl. But, yeah.
I want all the roasting to be respectful. I will not stand for anyone being shitty. Let's just say that first and foremost. I think if you have a disagreement, I think there's an appropriate way to go about it.
Yes.
We could all be respectful here. Don't be an asshole. I think that should be an ongoing rule for the community in general. Don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole. Yeah, and more importantly, stay strong, bitches.
Y'all, look. Yeah.
Now more than ever, stay strong,
now more
bitches.
than ever. I know it's going to be hard, but we're here. We're not going anywhere. And I'm looking forward to the next episode when we talk about whatever the fuck we decide on.
I'm so excited. Yes.
Here's to a tolerable 2025.
I'm hoping, all right? My heart's set on it. We're gonna survive this.
The theme song for She They Just Like Me For Real is performed by Stella Dolce. You can follow Stella on TikTok and Instagram and hear her music across all major streaming platforms.